It's been a little more than 24 hours since the world found out that Nelson Mandela died at the age of 95. And while many around the world are still mourning, many others are also taking the time to celebrate the civil rights icon's life. This was the scene outside Mandela's home in Johannesburg today. People singing and dancing, clapping and cheering for the former South African president. Hundreds of people are gathering there from all walks of life, young and old, all races and all faiths, truly symbolic of his legacy. And today, people here join the world in taking time to remember one of the world's most beloved statesmen and, of course, a major figure in the history of the 20th century. Melissa Raftis starts off our coverage tonight.
Looking at my own life, how it evolved as a young person, I mean, nothing could ever stop me or allow me to be depressed whenever I just recount what Nelson Mandela went through and what he stood for after everything.
29-year-old Leo Johnson left war-torn Liberia at 15. After spending 8 years in refugee camps, he came to Hamilton, where he graduated from McMaster University and started a group to help at-risk youth struggling with education. Throughout his journey, Johnson says Nelson Mandela was his #1 mentor.
1990, we were quite young. I was still very young. The war was raging in Liberia at the time, and I remember us singing the song Free Nelson Mandela at the time, because it was the talk of the continent.
Johnson says the country followed Mandela's story as if it were happening in Liberia, to the point where many Liberians forgot their own struggles.
Later on, I came to realize that it was the same in most parts of Africa, and it's always been one of those things that we couldn't have been more proud of, that one of our own was willing to take up the banner and lead like no one else could have.
Born in South Africa, Karen Saperson and her husband came to Canada in 1986 and eventually moved to Hamilton. She says while growing up, she was aware of Mandela as one of the leaders of the struggle, but censorship in the country was absolute.
I think a lot of the detail of his life and his huge, the impact of his leadership on the world has really come to light since his release.
Saperson has followed Mandela's life from Canada, learning about what she calls his visionary leadership and qualities that are rarely seen in political leaders.
His generosity of spirit, his ability to forgive and transcend all that is negative, the absence of any bitterness or anger.
It's these qualities Johnson says he hopes current world leaders will begin to embody.
If we're going to celebrate Nelson Mandela, then I think world leaders who are speaking all over the world today should start thinking about implementing and putting into action what Nelson Mandela stood for.
It's been announced that Mandela's funeral will be held December 15th here at Stewart Memorial Church. They're planning on hosting an event to possibly live stream the funeral for the public, and that all depends on the time that it will be held at, and details of that will be announced in the coming days.